أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. We give glory to Almighty Allah for His infinite mercy on each and every one of us for taking us through this month of Ramadan. And we thank him mostly for also giving us the opportunity to witness the Eid, of this year. We pray that Allah continue with his mercies on each and every one of us. The message I will have for us this year is to draw the attention of everyone to the vices that actually disturbs us as a human race and also in this country as an individual. 4 of those vices are selfishness, which Ramadan actually helps us to eliminate. The other one is greediness, that it helps us to eliminate, as well as envy, that it also helps us to eliminate. And finally is lying, which is the root of all offenses. And Ramadan assisted us, in eliminating all these vices. And how were all those things done? They were done actually by looking at about 7 critical areas of the act of fasting or Ramadan. The first of it, based on the verse that I recited, the last aspect of that verse actually tells us the purpose of Ramadan. And the purpose of Ramadan is actually to win nearness to Almighty Allah or closeness to Almighty Allah. La'allakum tattaqun, that you may become a God-fearing person. So what Ramadan does is actually to increase human being in spirituality. And Almighty Allah made us to realize that it is actually right from the beginning that he is prescribing fasting to people is the way of all holy men. So it has made us to be very holy. And what are the things we are doing in the Ramadan that we need to continue after Ramadan? About 6 things are very important that we are doing consistently in the Ramadan. And we should continue with them because they are healer to all the ills that we actually identified. The first thing is we read the Holy Quran a lot during the month of Ramadan. And once we read the Holy Quran, there is blessing in reading the Holy Quran. Because Almighty Allah says in the Holy Quran, Inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafisun. I am the one that revealed this Holy Quran unto you, and I am the guardian of the Holy Quran. So it grants us a whole lot of protection by reading the Holy Quran. Spiritual protection, moral protection, and so many other protection, as well. The second thing that we benefited from, materially during this Ramadan is salat, and that's our prayers. We are very regular in our prayers during the month of Ramadan, and it is very important we continue with this also after the month of Ramadan, because salat actually purifies our hearts, according to the narrations of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The other thing we do materially, the third thing is dua. We do a lot of dua. I remember when the Ramadan started and then COVID-19 also started, there are not a lot of prayers that we recited, to us, which I know a lot of us are very, very familiar with. So all these prayers, we should not forget them, especially the one we have been reciting and is keeping us, materially from COVID-19 or coronavirus or any other virus for that matter. Allahumma inni a'udzubika min al-barasi wal-jununi wal-juzami wa min sayyi'il asqam. We should continuously recite this prayer against all evils, against all evil diseases. May Almighty Allah continue to protect each and every one of us. The fourth thing is the act of avoiding evil during the month of Ramadan. We cannot fight. We cannot fight as a Muslim. So even if somebody wants to fight with you, you will need to tell the person, in line with the sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, please, I am fasting. And so we must maintain absolute peace. So therefore, avoidance of evil is something that we actually did successfully during this training month of Ramadan. The 15th is the act of goodness. We have to increase in the act of goodness, and I want to draw our attention to this. The act of goodness is the peak of all religion. And that is why we find it very unacceptable, anything that is negative. Anything that is negative will not be part of Islam, especially of our Jama'at, Jama'atul Ahmadiyya. So we need to note that doing act of goodness is an act that we focused on during the month of Ramadan, and a lot of good deeds, were done during the month of Ramadan, and we should continue with this. And we continue also to increase in the act of charity. This act of charity is by taking care of others as well. It's something that we did extensively during the month of Ramadan, and if we continue on the act of charity, then things will be okay, because charity is not only about finance or cash. Charity in terms of being charitable to people, in sharing knowledge, in sharing information, positive information, and not negative information, because we have to abstain from negative information. So all these are spiritual developments that we have during the month of Ramadan. So I pray that Almighty Allah accept all these as an act of ibadah. The second thing we also develop is an act of moral development during the month of Ramadan. This act of morality is actually avoiding evil. A lot of us all over that are fasting, especially Muslims that are fasting, you have to avoid all evils. There was no embezzlement, no theft, no lying, no corruption, because you can't do it and still be fasting. Otherwise, you are not fasting. That is the rule of fasting. So all these things you cannot do in fasting. So if you are fasting and you still do any one of them, it means you are on your own. Nobody will pass any judgment on such an individual, but his judgment is going to be with Allah. I know everybody wants Allah's pleasure. Therefore, nobody is going to be engaged in all these misdeeds and still say that they are fasting. So we increase in the act of doing good, justice, and then maintaining peace. Now, the third thing is obedience to Allah, His prophets, and then those who are in authority. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we consistently drew our attention to the need to obey authority, even at the highest. The highest is for a Muslim not to go to mosque, because that is the peak of where we serve Almighty Allah. And we can see even the mosque in Haram, in Mecca, in Medina, they were shut and people obeyed the authority. So we were trained to obey the authority. We think this should continue, after, so that government can control the whole of these things. We increase in our competence during this time. We use a lot of technology to deliver lectures to make sure that Tabligh continues. So this is an act that should continue. I pray that Allah bless everyone that partakes in those acts of competence upscale. And next one is increase in trustworthiness and honesty during this month, which should continue. And finally is actually the act of prayers. As I said, we increased in the act of prayers, so I pray that Almighty Allah accept our prayers during this month, all the prayers that we offered to Almighty Allah, because the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that La yarudul qada illa duaha. The situation of a person cannot change except with the act of prayers. So I pray that Almighty Allah accept all our prayers. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alayna ya maulana innaka antat tawwabur rahim wa innaka anta mujibud du'a. This is one of the prayers that we offered during this period, which means we pray that Almighty Allah grant us the good of this world as well as the good in the world to come, which means that we should also work on it, as I have said before, which comes to the act of competence. We also offered prayers. Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna aw fa'fu anni. We pray that Almighty Allah overlook our shortcomings individually and also collectively. The reasoning for this prayer is he who Allah will bless. The first thing will be for Allah to overlook the shortcoming of that person, and therefore the person can then win the mercy of Almighty Allah. Quite a number of prayers we offered during this Ramadan. And finally, we also offered Darood on the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we should continue with this act of Darood. We should pray for our brothers, because the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that if you pray for someone and the person also pray for you, the prayer will be accepted. So I pray that all our acts of ibadah during this month of Ramadan, Almighty Allah accept them as an act of ibadah. All our sacrifices, may Almighty Allah accept them as an act of sacrifice. All our prayers, our dua, our salat, I pray that Almighty Allah accept all of them. And the one we will be doing for the next 11 months, pending the time another Ramadan will visit us, I pray that Almighty Allah continue to accept our prayers, protect us, protect our family, protect our country, and protect the whole world against this pandemic, and then return us to our places of worship and continue to bless each and every one of us. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alayna ya maulana innaka antat tawwabur rahim wa innaka anta mujibud du'a. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.